All right, let's do it live on a Monday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. Yep, you're on.
Thank
I am
you.
merely Beau. He is the great Z. Welcome in. How you living, buddy?
Oh, I see a glow emanating on the other side here of my Zoom. You look tanned.
Of your personal Zoom.
You look resplendent. It is great to see you. We missed you over the last 3 days, but we were glad that you and the Bold were living it up in sunny Florida.
Yeah.
And now we're happy to have you back.
It's good to be back. It was a nice little respite. This is week 52, as you may or may not know. Week 52 of remote and all of this, and so it's amazing how quickly a year goes. And it was good to get away. There are a couple of quick observations off the top of life in the FLA. We live in two Americas. I mean, I think that's just the first thing that jumps out at you. Is that's just very, very different down there than here. There is and that's for better or worse, and I'm not here to comment on it one way or another. It's just very, very different. And it was good to see the sun, but it was nice to come back and see the sun here as well. I mean, that's a big bonus when you land, at Hopkins and you get a little sun hitting you on a Sunday evening. That's a nice spot, to say the least. A couple of things hit me off the top. There's a mid-2000s HBO series that's called Deadwood that you started, and I don't know if it was maybe too grisly for Miss K. I'm not sure what happened.
But I went through it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Fantastic three-season series about Deadwood, South Dakota. At one point, the protagonist or antagonist, depending on how you view him at what stage of the viewing you're in, Al Swearingen says, as a bar fight is breaking out in his saloon, act civilized even if you ain't. At one point, he says this. And that's how I felt with the boys down there, because it occurred to me that we have not taken them out to dinner in a year, right?
Yeah.
So we pride ourselves on the boys order their own dinner. We don't give out iPads and phones and these things. Like, they will behave in an orderly fashion. They're 9, 7, and 5. So the last time we did this was well over a year ago. Was 9, 7, and 5, and they sit in their chairs and they behave like little gentlemen, and we have the meals. Well, 1 year without practice, and that was out the window, brother. That was out the window. Bootsy was crawling under the table, trying to wrestle my wife's phone out of her hand. I mean, it was just lawlessness. And It was like, oh, yeah, that's right. We haven't done this in a year. We forgot how to do this. We forgot how to behave. And as you know, when you're on a vacation, every meal is out. Was for us anyway. We stayed at a resort. We didn't stay in a house, which in retrospect maybe was a mistake for these reasons. But that was the first thing that jumped out to me that was very real. Two other quick stories real quick. So they had this inflatable 35-foot water slide at the resort, okay? Bootsy and Black Cobra and Beamsy, ages 9, 7, and 5, rode this thing 1,500 times.
I was just saying, 1,000. That was going to be my over-under.
Whatever the record was,
shattered.
The little dude, especially Bootsy, as soon as he get off, sprint back to the line to get back in it. I mean, just couldn't wait. And I couldn't get him to go to the ocean. I couldn't get him to go to the pools. No interest. Just wanted to ride this inflatable thing. So that's it. So at one point on Friday, I think it was, our third day, my wife goes, listen, you've ridden this thing enough. Like, I really want to go look for some shells on the beach. And we were in Marco, and as Gibby can attest, the shells are everywhere. There's 7 billion shells to choose from. So she goes, I want to do it. I want you guys to do what just give me a half hour, and I just want to do this. And you know those little plastic sifts that come in like beach toy sets that you get a bunch of sand in and then you sift it out and the shells are there? Without skipping a beat, Bootsy grabs the plastic sifter, just scoops up a bunch of sand, and goes, you want shells? Here are your shells. Can I go back to the slide now?
He's so bold,
Fantastic.
So focused. He's like a Clydesdale. He's
Singularly.
locked into what he wants to do. This is what I want to do.
Just blows through it.
Don't you guys know, as parents,
what's the problem?
Your job is to keep me happy so that when I'm happy, your life's easier. So what are you doing messing with this formula? It works.
Just let me slide.
Let me slide.
I'm not asking you to come watch me.
No.
I'll be here for 6 hours. There's nothing for you to see here. It's fine.
You mean to tell me he's giving you like a slide session that's free of Dad, watch, Dad, watch. Then what are you doing interrupting
does
that?
not care.
What is she doing?
He doesn't care. Well, he's at the age where he's so long.
Tactical error.
He's so bold in his ways
that
he's fearless. So he doesn't have any interest in waiting for you. Like, he just takes off running places. He feels like the world revolves around him.
Right.
And I don't know where he got that idea. So that was a bit of the problem. The last thing I would share with you is there was a wide variety of people at this resort. So there were, retired couples who were having a nice little vacation and wanting a great meal and this type of things. There were people there because it's early spring break season. So college spring break, some of that was happening down there. So it was a wide variety of people staying at this particular resort. So on Saturday, there were some women who I thought were probably very clearly on a birthday party. So I would say they could either be celebrating either a 45th birthday or a 50th birthday.
Okay.
And they were situated behind us. We were in like a hut thing, and they were situated like behind us about 20 yards. And the boys kept staring, and they were having a good time. I mean, it was an attention getter, right?
Yeah.
And luckily, I was facing towards the ocean and enjoying the views of the ocean, and I would say, come on, boys. All right, that's enough. You can't do that. So a couple hours pass, and this has been going on all day. And there was a DJ on the beach, spinning hits for the people. And all of a sudden, and you two will be aware of this, all of a sudden I hear the first couple of notes of Santeria by Sublime.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, oh, that's my tune, man.
Fantastic
Let's
tune.
go. Who doesn't want to?
No
so I start singing.
Yeah.
I ain't got $1 million. Yeah. And I spent all that. I start singing. I'm like, oh, this is my song. Fantastic. I look around. I turn around. And the women who I described as celebrating an older birthday had requested it. And I went, oh, that's me.
That's us.
I'm them.
Yeah.
That's us.
That's
and then I realized that song came out in 1996. And I went, oh,
so you're
I'm them.
From high school.
The only difference is I got the family. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Holds up.
Listen,
it's a great song.
There. Listen, we're fine. We're still in the early 40s. We're safe.
Fantastic.
We're so young.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. What did I miss? Did Gibby do the show? How did the I understand there's a button thing we're dealing with now.
He had a couple on-air, off-air, mic on, mic off snafus, but, the people have been riled up as a result of that. He, in classic Gibby style, was so upset with himself for allowing us to have such ammunition about the on-off switch.
Victory.
But he's been, it was great. It was me, Gibby would chime in. We had an Ibs boys, the Ibs boys would reunite at 2 o'clock every day and come at me, which was fun. And then, Gibby in his huge P-ness was booking guests, and it was great. It was a good 3 days. We missed you significantly. Obviously it wasn't the same, but we had fun. You missed something that maybe might have to happen on some Fridays here and there. One segment.
Sprinkle them in.
One segment on Friday of calls.
Yep.
15 minutes, one segment. Hold on. I know. Hold on, listen. We got a guy from California who so pays attention to the scores, just moved to San Francisco, already had eaten at Gaspari's, my favorite pizza place that I've talked about. That's how much he pays. So we're off to the races. Another one calls in demanding the light. Hall of Fame. It was 4 for 4. Then another guy in Atlanta who apparently had a 30th birthday where his family had shirts with my face on it where they put a cigarette in my mouth like smoking Jay Cutler and with the Let's Go on. So, it was 4 for 4 Hall of Fame. Can we ever do that again? I'm not sure. It's possible. But for this foray, it was very fun to kind of dip the toe in the water. And the callers held up their end of the bargain. They were spectacular.
They have to be elite. I'm open to a one segment of Friday in the off season.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I'm open, but the last time we did this off the rails in about 6 seconds.
If it gets shut down, it's not on us. It's on them. And that's what we were hyping it all show long. Like, bring it. This has to be A level. And it was. Got to be
A level, got to be right. They were smart to go after your all the things important to you. That's smart of the callers because you would be a fan
audience.
of that, clearly.
Well, and go after Gibbe, a little attack on Gibbe, who, by the way, looks great
double,
again today. He's in his great purple. He's dressing up every day for work. It's awesome.
Sure.
He's going through the whole collection of catalog. He looks great. He looks great. The best was when the guy called up and said, Gibbe, give him the light. Gibbe goes, I'm going to run you. It's great. Gibbe's such a legend.
Now, when Gibbe had the malfunction with the light, did you not bring attention to it in a professional manner and just move on and act as if nobody
brought
missed
attention
anything?
to
Because
it.
the
I was
audience
like, hey, your mic's not on. Your mic's not on. Oh, you would know because I tossed him because it was just me and Gibbe doing the show. It's not like he was just chiming in. It was a throw to Gibbe. And then
to Gibbe.
Yeah, so you knew you were expecting Gibbe to talk, and Gibbe's,
oh, wow.
Hey, your mic's not on. And then he comes on and he's, dang it! He's screaming at himself. So it was perfect. It was great. And I said, you could have helped you.
He hung himself.
A light could have helped you. Yeah, CBD light
trending.
Well,
there you go.
Light, so thank you to the people. Somebody had a great idea on Twitter.
All 10 people that did.
I had mentioned that there was a petition that had 47,000 signatories on it of people wanting this light. And somebody on Twitter was like, well, instead of their signature, why don't you just get each one of them to give you $1 and you can have all the lights you want? I said,
how many lights do you need? How much is a light? What's a light running these days?
Yeah,
I'm not going to crush Gibbe because I'm not going to crush Gibbe because upon arrival yesterday, you will notice that I have a new headset.
Oh.
And it's not a broken wire. It's clear. I don't have to worry about winding.
Crystal.
There's no breaking. There's no exposed copper. There's none of that. So I just couldn't love the Gibbe anymore.
When Gibbe is on board with what we need, we're talking first class service. It's the best. Oh, you want? Yeah, he's like Stefanski. You want a quarter zip? I'll get one for you on Monday. Boom. You want a new headset?
Get it for you Monday,
it's gonna be delivered to your home in a velvet bag. I'm sure it was in a velvet bag. But if he's not, if he's not into what it is that you covet, he's just
the amazing thing about this light, of course, is that Gibbe designed this whole studio and did it unilaterally without any say from anyone else, entirely by himself.
Yeah.
He was in here on his off hours putting the thing together, and we all know that's the reality.
Yeah.
So, that's the way that it worked. Did you watch any of these sporting events this weekend? Did you watch Coming to America 2? Did you watch Bay Hill? Did you watch the All-Star game?
I watched some of Bay Hill. My boy Bryson is a beast, and yes, I want that to be the new tour logo. After what an epic bomb. It was awesome. Awesome.
340 on the carry on that? Did I see that right?
That's right. You did see that right. Did you see the ball speed? It was like 181 or something ridiculous. You got Stinks Curry putting on a show. I loved seeing that. Giannis goes 16 for 16 from the floor, 3 for 3 from 3 in an All-Star game. Granted, one of those threes, the bank was open. Not sure it was intentional given where he was shooting from on the floor. But who cares? There were some great individual performances this weekend.
It was fun. I thought the Curry performance in the three-point shootout was incredible. It was fun. You knew he was going to hit him. The other thing a couple things jumped out to me about the actual game. Number one, that he is, and LeBron said this afterwards, he's responsible for changing the game. The fact that he and Damian Lillard can shoot normal jump shot half quarters
is crazy
and make them is crazy. And it's changed the way that you have to defend and play the game. And it's a range that it doesn't really make sense to me that they do that, but they do it. And I realize they did it in an All-Star game, but when they first were doing it, I don't know if which one hit it first, Curry or Lillard?
I don't remember.
Did Lillard hit it first?
I don't remember.
And then the other one missed, and then they went right back to him and he hit it, and then Lillard hit one in the second half. It's not like they were missing 10 of them.
No, it's like
they hit their first ones.
It's like the Globetrotters.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's just such an incredible way that the game has changed the way that it's played. The other thing that jumped out to me, and I was thinking about this last night, and then I started to see some stuff this morning on it on social, those uniforms looked very much like Indiana Pacers uniforms from the 90s.
Yeah.
The Reggie Miller, Chuck Persons, Rick Smith's Pacers uniforms.
Detlef Schrempf.
Yep. And that's right. And come to find out, they were in homage to those uniforms because that All-Star game was supposed to be in
Indiana. Yeah.
Which is pretty remarkable at the NBA. That tells you, so when you had all of that complaining about playing the All-Star game, the NBA clearly got it to the people, the Players Association said, look, TNT is paying for this All-Star game. They want the All-Star game. I don't care what uniforms you wear. We're playing it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it in Atlanta, and it's going to go off whether you guys like it or not. And they did it. And I thought that kind of spoke to the lengths that are being gone right now to deliver product to the television partners. That because there was a lot of people crowing about we're not playing it. This is stupid. It's for the fans. Oh yeah, we're playing it. You're wearing the Indiana uniforms, and we're showing it on TNT because they paid for it, and that's what they did.
And first of all, it's always a fun game. I think
it is a fun game.
Right now, if you were to take and ask me, okay, what is your favorite professional exhibition event? It's the three-point shootout. The dunk contest is lost its way. It's sad.
It's gone.
It's not what it used to be.
It's over. Yep.
But the three-point shootout, and you have a loaded field with guys balling. Conley was great, but Steph was so – it just – that to me is the ultimate – that's the one thing that I try to go out of my way to watch is the three-point shootout because I love it. It's quick. It's fun. We all can relate to it.
We know the rules.
We know it's very easy to understand. There's nothing subjective about it. There's nothing subjective about the scoring. You make it. Moneyball's worth two. There you go. And on you go. I thought that was great. LeBron and Thursday night watching the picking of these teams. I mean, it was like Durant was in bizarro world. I mean, LeBron it was over when the draft happened.
Now, I didn't see the actual picking of it. I just saw the video of Giannis being told who the starters were and him, like, chuckling and going, it's over. I'm sorry, but it's over.
Yeah, LeBron had all the best people.
The starters are me, LeBron, Steph, Luka, Joker.
Yeah.
That's the starting five? Wait, what? How did that happen? Who did Durant pick?
Kyrie.
Like Kawhi and Kyrie? Probably Embiid, who was out.
Embiid, who didn't play. But, I mean, it was a very bizarre. It was bizarre, especially because from a strategy standpoint, you knew Embiid and Jokic were going to be the centers. Like, nobody was going to pick Embiid and Jokic. And I think he picked Embiid. I think he went Kyrie Embiid. And Embiid's playing great. But you didn't need to take your center early. You could have taken your center at the end and know you got either Jokic or Embiid, and you'd have been fine. It was very It was bizarre. I was like, LeBron's team, it's all the best guys. That doesn't even make sense. How do you have LeBron, Luka, Steph, and forget Jokic, but how do you have LeBron, Luka, Steph, and Giannis on the same team? How is that even in a draft scenario?
Crazy. Also crazy, this is the first time LeBron and Steph actually played together.
Ever. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was fun. The boys loved it. They watched some of it last night when we got back. It was a good time had by all. And those were your OBM Hot Topics. Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider of your Cleveland Browns. Have all the X's and O's for your office. You can call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Coming up next, our old buddy Dan Graziano with some details on the NFL and the NFLPA as we work through the 2020-21 salary cap number. Mel Kiper Jr. with a fun story about the highest-graded quarterbacks ever since he's been grading quarterbacks dating back to 1979. Jason Fitzgerald, salary cap and contract expert at overthecap.com, will join us at 2 o'clock as we get you set for free agency. Z's going to have some breakdowns on the defensive side of the ball as well. You have that to look forward to, and the offensive side, which is very, very nice. Off and running here on a Monday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey friends, Beau Bishop here for my friends at Weather Seal Home Services. You need a roof replacement? Would you like to replace your roof for the last time? I know that you would. That's the benefit of choosing a metal roof from Weather Seal. Metal roof technology, materials, styles, colors, they've improved significantly. They're more beautiful than ever. They're nearly indestructible, and guess what? They are affordable, especially at Weather Seal. Plus, with a new metal roof, Weather Seal includes 6-inch gutter upgrade and up to 7 years, 0 interest financing. That's right, 7 years, 0 interest on the financing. Call my guys, 877-351-SEAL, or visit weathersealhomeservices.com for more. Time to go around the league, and we start with our good buddy Dan Graziano, ESPN. Per sources, the NFL and NFLPA continue to work to finalize the 2021 salary cap number. The union prefers to wait until TV deals are finalized. Naturally, they would. Due to this uncertainty, there are discussions about pushing back Tuesday's deadline for teams to use the franchise tag. So how many of these television negotiations are we still waiting on? All of them can be negotiated, but do they have to be right now? Is there a window for this?
I don't know. We know one of them's done, right? We've got one of the pieces.
One's done.
We need to get the other main pieces. And, of course, if you're the union, you want to wait, which means they're going to have to push back the franchise tag deadline, which there have already been talks about that being, possible, that will happen and likely to happen. That's already made the reporting. So, of course, you need to know. Everybody needs to know what's going on and what the deal is in terms of the money, so you know who you can keep, who you can't keep, who you're going to go after, how, all of it. It would be like, how do you go shopping without knowing what your budget is?
Right.
You got to know your budget. It's important.
You got to know.
Yeah.
You've got to know. Yeah, it is. So we're all kind of floating around here trying to wait on this to know what you can spend and what can't. We know what the floor will be roughly, but beyond that, you're kind of lost a little bit. So that's a big piece of information. And I don't know how. I mean, I've seen very little on how close they are with the other deals. Obviously, the Disney deal is done.
Right.
You have to think that the Fox and CBS deals are the two that are being hashed out right now, and the NBC deal. So you have 3 more deals that have to be sorted out if you're going to wait until that's done in order to get a salary cap number that makes sense based on the new money that's coming in.
Right, and so I think that is the next shoe to drop. And J.C. Tretter, obviously the shrewd negotiator that he is going to make sure that he goes ahead and, understands the parameters to get the best deal. That makes the most sense. More money that can come back. Yes, of course.
Yeah. I saw this over the weekend. Ben Albright, the first to report that the Broncos are tagging safety Justin Simmons. Ben's pretty solid on his information and has been for a long time. And,
that's right.
And nails this one. So this is a franchise tag on a safety that, him and Harris out of Minnesota, those are the 2 guys that we've talked about the last couple of years. You figured that Simmons would get franchised. Not a real surprise, I don't think, for me, but they do franchise him, and so that's the way that he will stay in Denver and take that safety out of the market.
Yep, and that is, to me, not a surprise at all. He is that good. In addition, for Denver, Adam Schefter also reported that no charges will be brought against Von Miller in regards to the ongoing investigation by the Parker Police Department. Miller's attorney was unavailable for comment, but no charges will be brought against Von Miller. So that's something that they were looking to get cleared up, and apparently that has been cleared up. Carlos Dunlap, released by the Seahawks, and he made a huge difference for their defense. That saves them $14 million against the cap, so I guess it's not that surprising, but maybe he's somebody they're looking to bring back on a different number, but they couldn't agree on that right now, so he'll hit the mark. And he's another guy that if, again, you're looking at a short-term solution to a long-term problem, he could fit that bill and buy you another year of time if Carlos Dunlap were to be the guy that you put in opposite Myles Garrett. We saw still he could play at a very, very high level, so that is something.
And a much cheaper option, I think, right, than probably what Lawson will end up being because his name continues to be pushed up the charts.
Bandied about. Indeed it is. So, yes, certainly that. Also, Greg Allman, who covers the Bucs, reporting that the Browns and Blake Hance have agreed on a 2-year deal that will keep Blake here with the Browns.
All right, very good there. Blake. Right. I missed the conversations with Andrew and Coach last week. If you were to give me a 90-second, what did I miss?
Let me ask you a question first, and then maybe my question will be the answer to your question.
Very good. Shrewd.
In
Shrewd
a Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Barry press conference situation, Do you think they would give you anything to miss? No. I would say
I don't think so.
This
is always a tough one.
Yes,
These are tough pressers because they're going into free agency in the draft. You're not at the combine. You don't have the combine to react to, and even if you did, you wouldn't. Really, what the best you can hope for in those is and I've seen some of this stuff in terms of some of Kevin's quotes about how brutal the playoff game was to watch, and he could give real meat to that versus when we talked about him in the moment and he was trying to prepare for Kansas City. But yeah, no, this is an awkward time to do these because everything's close to the vest. You're not going to say anything.
No. I think it's obvious that they would.
And they're too smart.
They would like to have Hollywood back. They'd like to have Money Mitch back. It's going to be a matter if those guys are able to come back in roles that their play indicated they could take on bigger roles and bigger money elsewhere. And what does that look like, but that they would want them to be back. The biggest news of the week came, honestly, from Greedy Williams himself. Not through any official channel, but Greedy with Mary Kay Cabot talking about that, his road back and good news happening, the muscle firing in his shoulder and the nerve damage seeming to be going away as he works his way back.
Well, that is he and Grant are the two things that are kind of hanging over this. Free agency, the draft, everything. It just, what shape are they in? And so I did see that story from Mary Kay in Cleveland.com, and it was great to see that Greedy is on the road to recovery. But I also think it would be naive, and one thing I would never use, the word I would never use with Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry is the word naive. That's the furthest from what they are. It'd be naive to go into next season counting on those guys to be what they were without any backup plans, and I don't think that they will do that. I think that there will be backup plans, and whether it's via draft or free agency, those are two positions that probably need to be buttressed. Multiple teams have inquired. Oh yeah, very good. Interest in trading for Eagles tight end Zach Ertz as well, and then you saw just today, or maybe it was yesterday, Mort reporting that Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, saying, "Make Jalen Hurts happy, put him in the best position to succeed. We're not interested in competition." I would think keeping Zach Ertz would certainly go a long way in keeping Jalen Hurts happy.
They think they're ready. Dallas Goedert is ready to become the man. And I think that they might be getting away a little bit from their two tight end offense that they had run so much, obviously with the coaching change, et cetera. And so there are a lot of people that want the services of Zach Ertz, and not surprising. And we're hearing, a lot of star quarterbacks are telling their teams already, yeah, get me Zach Ertz. He's going to help me be better. So he's going to have a very good market. He is a very good player. He was one of the most consistent, those who play fantasy other than this season when he got hurt, probably the most consistent tight end there is. I mean, just Zach Ertz, you're going to get top 4 production, and away you go. So very, very good player, and he will be, I think, he will end up wherever it is. He will end up somewhere where he will be featured and he will be productive. The guy had, from 2015 to 2019, at least 800 yards receiving every single year. He had one year, 2018, 1163. He had 8 touchdowns multiple times. The last 3 seasons that he's played full, 824 and 8, 1,163 and 8, 916 and 6. And then last year, obviously, injuries affected his season and so was limited in his production. But a very good player still. He's going to be turned 31 in the middle of the season. So, a veteran at a position where you can be, I think, a savvy veteran. And Zach Ertz certainly fits that bill.
Certainly does. We will give you our Cleveland Browns Daily Free Agent Big Board, position by position. That means we put the Z to work, and we start with the free agent wide receivers. We will get to that list coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Knowing one's limit is important, whether it's a snap count for a football player or a spending limit when you're playing the lottery. So if you like to gamble, set a limit beforehand and stick to it. If you want to learn more, go to keepitfunohio.com for helpful tips on how to keep gambling fun. Over the course of this week, we will put together our Cleveland Browns Daily Free Agency Big Board, position by position. Remember, free agency becomes real on St. Paddy's Day, March 17th at 4 o'clock. There's that legal tampering that what happens? Like a week before that for 7 days you can legally tamper?
48 hours, isn't it, Gibbe? Yes, Gibbe
Is
says
it that close?
It starts Monday. Legal tampering starts a week from today. And then a week from Wednesday at 4 o'clock, free agency starts.
Yeah, there you go. Good job out of you. I was on vacation. I missed these things, like league mandates on dates. All right, so a couple of things. We've talked about this pretty consistently before we get to your list of wide receivers. We've gone over this pretty consistently, and I think it's important that we set kind of a pecking order of our beliefs. And last, we all did a show together, defensive end opposite Miles, secondary, safety, corner, linebacker that can run, speed.
Yep.
Like are we fair with that being kind of the way we're looking at this?
I think absolutely. The number one priority would be that defensive end opposite Myles Garrett. And Andrew Berry said, do not pigeonhole me and tell me what my number one priority is. But, yeah, I would agree that that's probably where you're looking first. And then, as you mentioned, it's on the defensive side of the ball, all three levels. And then on offense, if you're looking for anything, you're looking for speed at wide receiver. I mean, that's really it. That's the list. And it's a wonderful thing that the list is so small on that side of the ball. But that is the list.
That's it. And if there is one criticism of our wide receiver room, it's that it does not have a take the top off receiver that runs 4.2, 4.3 and can get deep. This doesn't have to be somebody who catches 100 balls. That's not what's required. You've got that. So you just need somebody who can scare the back end a little bit, make them play on their heels a little bit. And there is some redundancy in our receiver room in terms of guys who can kind of do similar things. And so this would be the position. And as we get into your top free agent wide receivers, my hunch is that is the specific characteristic you were looking for.
Yeah, that is what I'm looking for. You're exactly right. And I think that's what it is. That's what Andrew Berry is going to be looking for as well when you think about this room and what you want to do to improve it. So I kind of put together a free agent big board, as it were, and looking at it. And what I'm talking about here, and you'll hear as I go through the names, I'm just kind of going through the names that are free agents that I think are even remotely possible, and then we'll have a discussion and kind of narrow down to what we think is, probably the most likely outcome and scenario here, because that's what Andrew Berry and that's what they're doing, that's what they're thinking about, and that's what we're thinking about as it relates to all of these things. So let's start with the name that I would say, if you're doing a slight splurge, is what I would call it, would be Curtis Samuel. And Curtis Samuel, 24, he brings speed to stretch the field vertically and horizontally. 2 years ago, his average depth of target was 16.5 yards. He's very good on those passes of more than 20 yards in the air. Now, last year, they put him in the slot. They used him. He carried the ball at least once a game. So he's after the catch grades, great on the jet sweeps, et cetera. Last year, 1,051 total yards, 5 touchdowns. He averages over 6 touchdowns over the last 3 seasons. So he probably would be expensive. And what you're doing, that's a pick that you think helps you now. It brings a dimension you currently don't have, but that's also a succession planning pickup because you're saying very soon you're going to be one of my top 2 guys, I think.
Yep.
So, again, does that fit? I don't know. Then Nelson Aguilar. 18.
And real quick on him, real quick on Samuel, just because obviously he played at Ohio State. He had the walk-off winner against Michigan. Is an incredible athlete who was used all over the field at Ohio State, at running back in the slot, out wide, and has gotten better with each year in the NFL. A real Swiss Army knife type player that you'd have there. I think, when you think about historically speaking, the Metcalf would be that type of player is what Samuel would bring to your offense. There'd be a lot of ways to use him. Just wanted to interject that. Go ahead.
No, I think you're right, but I think he's expensive for that reason. I think he's an expensive guy, and I don't know that what you're looking for is expensive in this particular room, is what I would say. So
hard to imagine it could be, right, Z?
Correct.
Based on the amount of money that's going out now, I don't know how you could bring in more big money.
Right. So that gets into some of the next grouping. Nelson Aguilar, 18 yards a catch last year. Speed, still drops a lot of passes. He dropped 9 balls last year. I think he's going to be expensive. He can play in the slot. He can play out wide. But you're banking on, I would guess, somebody that's going to command a decent amount of money, repeating something he's only done once in his career. So does Nelson Aguilar really fit? Maybe, but I'm not sold on that as being a realistic one. Just like Samuel, I think, does fit, but I'm not sold that we can figure out a way to make that happen.
Is it a financial
in a way that makes sense for everybody? Correct. Under our current setup. So let's go down the list. Brashad Perriman. Now this is the first one that I think actually maybe makes some sense. Former first-round pick. He's 6'2", so he's bigger than a lot of the guys in our room. He can fly. He's averaging 17 yards a catch or more each of the last 3 seasons. He averaged 21.3 with the Browns in 2018, so he's got excellent chemistry with Baker. He had averaged 18 yards a catch, put up over almost 700 yards, 6 touchdowns with Tampa Bay in 2019. Last year, over 500 yards, 17 yards a catch with the Jets. So he is vertical. He must be respected by defenses, and he will not break the bank. He will not break the bank. So does that make him somebody that's potentially a little bit more appealing? Maybe. I think he's a realistic.
You love the chemistry
that
he had with Baker. There's a familiarity there that you can't argue.
Correct. You can't argue. You can't deny it. It's there and it's real. So then you look at, okay, and this I'll put, because these 4 guys to me are all established. Bring back Hollywood Higgins. Incredible chemistry with Baker, 52 catches, 599 yards, 4 touchdowns, all second most on the team. He averaged 16.2 yards a catch last year, 12 yards per target, 2 yards per route run, was incredibly efficient. He started the season inactive, as you talk about all the time, and worked and dominated whenever given the chance. Can the Browns afford him? This is a guy that I think has said, look, I can be a number 2 receiver in the NFL. Does he want to leave here? Is he willing to take less to come back here? Because I think in some ways that's what it's going to take. It's going to take him taking less than he could get out there to come back to the Browns. So will that happen? I don't know. Would I love to see him back? Of course, we love Hollywood. But skill set-wise, not that different. Doesn't address the speed issue, but just a tremendous receiver. And again, somebody that your offense was – let's not forget, the offense was great over the second half of the season without that. With he and Jarvis as your 1 and 2. And this scheme was so good, he averaged 16.2 yards a catch. He made big catches down the field. You know what you're getting. So if that can be worked out, there's 6. And then now I'm going to throw out 4 names that are sleepers and maybe might be short-term type of solutions for what the Browns want to do. First one's Deshaun Jackson. He's 34. He's averaged 17.4 yards per catch for his career. He definitely is still a deep threat. He still can fly. But what does that cost at this point? All of a sudden, though, you think about Deshaun Jackson on one side, Odell on the other, Jarvis in the slot.
Yep.
Defenses are going to have to deal with that. And that opens, I think, creates space. That opens a lot of things up for you. So that's a name that I put out there. Another one is Kenny Stills. 16 yards a catch for his career.
Sure.
Great vertical receiver. His quarterback rating's been over 100 when targeted 5 times in his career. He's a one-trick pony. It's a vertical trick, but it's one that must be respected, and he's not going to cost you a lot of money to add that speed to your team. Same with Damiere Byrd, who was in New England with the quarterback that couldn't throw the ball this year. 4.2 runs a 4.27. He's a vertical guy. He's a guy that you throw out there. All of a sudden in this offense, run him on some of those verts and the deep overs, he is going to draw attention. Probably going to be cheap. Same with Taylor Gabriel, who opted out last year. You have to see him run. But if he can still run, he averaged over 17 yards per catch for his career in this kind of an offense in his years with Kyle Shanahan. So he knows this. And then today, the Titans cut Khalif Raymond. Khalif Raymond, in a similar style offense, averaged 19 yards a catch. He's also an excellent returner, both punt and kick. And he can fly. And he knows these concepts. And when they went to him, it was play action shots. And like I said, he averaged about 20 yards a catch. So he's another one that, again, could fill multiple roles, won't break the bank, but add an element to your team that doesn't currently exist. So if you were to say to me, what's the most likely, I'd say from the top level, Perriman and Higgins. From the bottom level, a guy like Byrd, Raymond, or even Kenny Stills. I don't think Deshaun Jackson is going to end up here, but I put it out there. just because he fits what we're looking for from that speed standpoint. I think Samuel's going to be too expensive. I think Aguilar's going to be too expensive and risky. I think Perriman makes a lot of sense. Knows our quarterback, knows Cleveland. Higgins, of course, makes a ton of sense, but can we afford to pay Hollywood Higgins and pay Odell and pay Jarvis? And I just don't know the answer to that. I hope so.
Well, and I think the other thing to remember about all this, and in regard to the expense of some of these guys, the other thing that you have to remember is this is like the third straight draft where the deepest position is wide receiver.
Yep.
So you're going to be able to get a really good player. I mean, you might get a Rondale Moore in the second round. You might be a third rounder.
Yep.
Look at the recent run. Look at Deontay Johnson. Look at Terry McLaurin. Look at the talented run of third-round receivers in recent years. We got Donovan Peoples-Jones in the 6th round. He's a pro.
Yeah.
Like, this might not cost as much as you think based on the incredible flooding of the market at the position in the draft. And that figures to be the same this year.
And that's something you have to wait. Are we planning on using a second-round pick or one of our threes on a receiver and on speed? If so, then we don't really need to have much of a foray into this position. And there are guys out, Tutu Atwell. There are a lot of guys out there that have some real get up and go that will add dimensions to this offense. But I do think if you decide, hey, let's lock something in, Stills, Bird, Raymond are certainly good options on the cheap. Perriman, I think, is a good option who won't cost a ton. And then, of course, you love Hollywood, so you want him back. But that's the way that I look at this receiver room. I gave you a bunch of names there. And I think we're likely to be more shopping in the later part of the names from the Perriman, Higgins, Bird, Raymond group, or some Stills, somebody like that, as opposed to paying a Curtis Samuel or Nelson Aguilar what it would cost.
All right, that's a good job out of you. Much more still to come. Remember, top of the hour, Jason Fitzgerald, salary cap and contract expert for Over the Cap, will join us. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, NFL.com's Chad Ryder with a 4-round mock draft. We'll delve into right here. Round 1, and we've seen this before. I don't sense it, and you could tell me if not that Andrew Berry would tell you if he would or not, but it just would go against type. Has us trading up to pick 21 to take Tulsa linebacker Zaven Collins. He has been mocked to us more times than I can count.
Yep.
I mean, it's over and over and over that Zaven Collins is mocked to us. There's like this perception, I think, whether true or not, that it's who we have to have. I don't buy it. Not necessarily anything against him. He may be great. You may love to sprint up to the commissioner at pick number 26, here at the draft and throw his name on there. It might be a perfect fit. I just do not believe it fits what this group's all about to trade up to do it.
Again, if we move up in the first round, I probably would be surprised by that. But, I mean, if this is somebody that they've identified that they love and they know that, when you see these mocks, all of a sudden picks 21, 22, 23, if you're thinking about somebody that can rush the passer on the edge, that's where they're going. Now, Zaven Collins he can rush the passer, but we talked about coverage, play the run, could be specials, what it says here. Anthony Barr, and this is a staff that certainly knows Anthony Barr very well from what he brought and where he was a pass rusher in college at UCLA, and they turned him into kind of an off-ball, do-everything blitzer, coverage linebacker, etc. And so it makes sense that is a direction that they could go. You get a lot out of Zaven Collins, and he basically brings a stud playmaker to your team in your front seven. So that he's definitely the most mocked guy to us at this point. I think beyond.
Not close,
which means – typically, the chances of us taking him when you're that far down in the draft are very small.
Right.
Like, it's not like we have the second pick and we get somebody mocked to us over and over. We're picking 26th.
No.
So
there's so many variables, and his, I don't know. We'll see. He is by far. I don't know if I've even seen anybody else mocked to us multiple times, and I've seen him mocked us a dozen times.
Right.
In the second round, they have us going corner Elijah Molden. Now, I've seen him mocked to us in the first round, the corner out of Washington. I've seen that before. They have him falling here. We do not have Dane Brugler's Bible. We don't have these things that we need. The Beast. We don't have these things yet. And I'm not going to pretend that I have the scouting report on Elijah Molden or the projected third-round pick here, the Western Michigan wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge.
Yeah, but I'll give you
the
some.
Defensive tackle.
That's why you got me here.
I'm gonna come to you right now. They also have defensive tackle Cameron Sample in the third round as a second third rounder, and then Tommy Creamer, the guard out of Notre Dame. What can you tell us about these guys based on the homework that you've done?
So, some of it's going to be from the homework that Lance Zierlein has done, and I think Lance is very good at what he does. So for Elijah Molden, his father was a cornerback in the NFL. He's a versatile nickelback/safety combo, and his player pro comp that he gave him was the Honey Badger. So a guy that can cover and do a lot of the things that we're hearing that Joe Woods wants to be able to do, which is be able to move his safeties around, have them cover and play some of that nickel quarterback for you, but also be able to drop and play the deep third, disguise, blitz, etc. And Elijah Molden certainly seems to fit that bill. Very productive player at Washington. Dwayne Eskridge out of Western Michigan, they think he's going to run, when he does run at his pro day, low 4.3s. This is a guy who averaged more than 20 yards per catch each of his 3 seasons as a receiver at Western Michigan. He was a former 100-meter, 200-meter dash champion in high school.
There you go, speed.
Last year, 33 catches, 768 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So he can fly. So that would be, again, your speed. Cameron Sample is a guy that started off as a defensive end. They moved him inside as he got a little bit bigger. So you're hoping that he develops into an athletic interior pass rusher. And then Tommy Creamer. I'd be surprised we took a guard there, to be honest. If we're signing Hance, and we've got Dunn, and we've got Drew Forbes coming back, and we've got Hub still, and we've got Teller and Batonio. But that's what you're looking at here. So addressing the DBs, addressing the linebackers, you're addressing the speed on offense, you're addressing some more interior pass rush down the line, succession planning. Obviously, you've got Elliott, but you might have to plan eventually for Sheldon Richardson. And so that's what I'd see there. And this would say to me, this draft right here says we are addressing defensive end in free agency, and that allows us to use this draft to get some positions of need. Nickel corner / safety. You get a speed receiver that's going to bring that element, another interior pass rusher, and, of course, Collins, who can be kind of that Anthony Barr or Leighton Vander Esch, that versatile linebacker / pass rusher.
All right. It's a good job out of you. You're at the ready. As always, my friend, Jason Fitzgerald at the ready when it comes to the salary cap. And he will join us coming up next, overthecap.com, the position we're in, the position NFL teams are in, heading into free agency here. I mean, amazing, folks. A week and a half, it's where you're at, and free agency starts. So you have that to look forward to, which is nice. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You are up.
If you're injured at work, call the Workers' Compensation Lawyers at 1-800-ELK Ohio for a free case review. Elk and Elk, a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Beau Bishop, Nathan Zegura with you here. Hour 2 of Cleveland Browns Daily. And for that, we head out on the fifth third money line for a visit with our buddy Jason Fitzgerald, salary cap and contract expert at overthecap.com. And let's just start there, Jason, because there is uncertainty when it comes to the cap. And how long are we going to wait for television contracts? Is there a deadline for this? Are we going to push back, the franchise tag date? What is the latest on this, and what do you think is a logical path to whatever that's going to look like in the coming weeks?
I thought that the cap kind of would have been set by now. I figured it would have been kind of easy to project whatever this new television deal is that they're working on. From the sounds of it, they're going to push the franchise tag back maybe a couple days. This is what happened last year when they were running late on the CBA discussions and just kind of pushing things to a vote right before free agency started. They pushed the tag back a little bit. Pretty much it seemed like every other day they would push it back by 24 hours. So I think we're probably going to be in that same situation, and we'll probably get some clarity on the salary cap within the next, 4 days or so.
And when you think about the cap and the impact that could have, it's obviously likely to be down from where they thought it would be prior to the pandemic, but it could be up a little bit more. And is that going to, right now everybody's like, well, we're going to see a lot of people take these one-year deals. How much of an impact would an extra $10 million, for example, above what they're expecting at this point, how much of an impact would that have?
No, that would be pretty big. If the cap ended up coming in at like 193, 194, or close to what it was this year, I think that'd be a pretty big impact in terms of asking players to take pay cuts and the amount of money that would be available this year for players. If you're at the top of the food chain, if you're one of these real big name free agents, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. But yeah, for those second and third tier players, that'd be pretty big.
And Jason, you're coming out. This is such a obviously unique time for the league in that you're coming out of a year that was impacted greatly by the pandemic. It's a year that the NFL obviously delivered on time, which I think if you go back to, we've been doing this, Nathan and I, remotely for 52 weeks. This is our 52nd week of doing this show remotely in one form or another. And if you go back to then and would have said, yeah, the NFL is going to deliver a season on schedule, a Super Bowl on schedule, it's all going to happen. We were affected greatly. We had a coach who couldn't coach in a playoff game, for crying out loud. We played a game without any receivers. And yet there's this enormous television money which could be coming into the league, and we saw it with the Disney deal as well, and everyone is aware of that. So you're kind of balancing both a year where you had tremendous loss, but also you delivered a television product, and those negotiations are ongoing. In terms of the future of that, from a general manager's perspective, how do you navigate this, knowing what's going to happen a year from now versus what could happen next week?
No, I think if you're a general manager, and as long as you have an ownership group that's willing to kind of still spend this year, there's some ownership groups that might get really tight with the money. I think you look at ways to kind of creatively craft your contracts, even if it means using voidable contract years. What you're just looking to do is to find ways to kind of push the accounting money into those future years. If you can guarantee that, the cap is going to rise next year by $15-20 million and then $15 million the year after that, there's really no negative in pushing some money there if it's going to help you compete this year. In a normal season, you might want to say that you want to be a little bit more cautious. But I think with this special circumstances and probably an expected bump in the cap next year or the year thereafter, I think that's what you do as a general manager.
And in light of that, pushing some money back, who are some guys you see on the Browns that could be potential restructure candidates where you can lower their number this year, maybe add a year to the deal, and push some money down into the future?
If they really needed to do that, I think it would basically be the guys on their offensive line. The ones who they signed last year, Conklin, they can move some money with. Treader, they can move a couple dollars with. Those would really be the big guys for that. I think when you get into, players like a Jarvis Landry or an Odell Beckham, I almost think with them, you're going to start looking a little bit more as to what's their future on the team. Those offensive linemen, they're definitely going to be here for a couple of seasons. I think with the wide receivers, you run into a couple more questions there as to, whether you want to look to see if there's a pay cut that might be in there, or maybe even a small extension that can bring the numbers down a little bit. So I think it's a little different situation with them. But I think with the offensive linemen, you can just kind of push some money forward at cap-wise and be fine.
Jason, under Paul DePodesta and then Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, we have been in a very nice cap spot for a while. We are in a nice cap spot going into this offseason. We have holes that need to be filled defensively. We had a lot of guys who are on one-year deals here last year. You've got linebacker questions. Certainly the defensive end opposite Miles is something that you feel like will be a priority. Looming, you have extensions with Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward and the Nick Chubb question that's out there as well. From Andrew Berry's perspective, what position, how much power is he negotiating from in terms of how comfortable is he to be able to spread all this around and do the things that he needs to do in free agency while also servicing the issues that he has on this team in terms of extensions for stars and core members of your team?
I mean, I think they're in okay shape. They're about $20 million projected to be under the cap. They can get that to $30 million without a problem, maybe even a little bit higher than that before you really even get into to player cuts. So, I mean, that gives you the ability to do a lot of stuff. They do have a lot of holes that they have to fill. Starting safeties are both, I think, free agents this year. Two of your main cornerbacks are both free agents this year. You mentioned, how Vernon is going to be a free agent, so you've got the other edge spot that's going to be open. So you do have a lot of holes on defense that you need to fill. You need some linebackers probably to come in as well. So you're going to have to pick and choose what you do with those players. When it comes to the extensions for Mayfield and Chubb, I almost feel like those are, especially on the quarterback side, those are kind of deals that work themselves out. I can't think of too many quarterbacks, if any, there's probably none, where teams haven't found a way to re-sign their players. You may get a couple contract situations like with Prescott right now in Dallas, where there's some disagreement on stuff, but just about everybody gets done. So I don't really ever look at that as a worry for anyone. Quarterbacks play for a pretty long time, so you can do a lot of stuff structurally with those deals to really make it easy to navigate with your salary cap.
When you look at this free agent class, because there are a lot of very, very good players in it, do you think a lot of guys, even at the top, are going to try to say, let me wait one more year to get that big money when there's a bonanza next year? Do you think this is going to be the year of the one-year deal, or do you think that top guys will still get paid like they would even if the salary cap hadn't gone down due to COVID?
Yeah, I think the top guys are still going to get paid. Those big-name wide receivers who might hit free agency this year and the big-name pass rushers are all going to get, 17, 18, 19, $20 million. I don't think the pandemic is going to impact them whatsoever. So I don't think that'll happen. There could be one or two guys maybe that falls through the crack just because you have so many free agents. Maybe if somebody felt that they were worth more and, they were fourth or fifth on somebody's list, maybe they'll take a one-year deal. But otherwise, I think the one-year deals are going to impact more of those guys who are in that kind of sub-$10 million a year range. That might be where you get more of the one-year contracts that pop in.
What positions, as you look at this free agent class and you try to go through and see what you can do in terms of projecting and budgeting? I know you guys have an awesome guide right now at overthecap.com that people should check out. But what positions feel the deepest where you are most likely to be able to get a bargain?
I think if you want to look for bargains, I think cornerback is a good spot to look for bargains. There's not a lot of high-end players available this year at corner. There's a number of really good players who can play the slot. There should be a number of affordable players who can play outside. So I think the depth is there at that position. There's just not the big-time stars. So that one to me stands out a little bit. Wide receiver is much more top-heavy. There's some guys lower than that who are pretty good as well. Edge rusher is another deep position as well. There's guys at the top. There's guys in the middle. There's guys that are a little bit lower that you can probably get good bargains on that may have a really good season in them. So I think edge and corner are the two positions that I would look at if you're just kind of looking for more reasonable cost depth. I think those are two really good spots this year in free agency.
Jason Fitzgerald, join us, salary cap and contract expert at overthecap.com. The guide is the OTC Football Free Agency Guide. We encourage you to check that out. Jason, I want to ask you about, one of the big things of this offseason has been the quarterbacks and maybe the start of player empowerment. And we certainly saw with Deshaun Watson where he is trying to force his way out of Houston. Houston says we're not moving. And then more recently, obviously Russell Wilson entered into the foray saying, look, I'm happy to be at Seattle, but if I am going to be traded, these are the 4 places that I would like to go, which is far from a I'm staying at Seattle no matter what conversation. Just from a cap standpoint, and Wilson specifically, how difficult would it be for Seattle to move him?
Near impossible.
Okay.
Wilson carries a pretty big dead money number. I think it's about $39 million. They paid him I think it was a $65 million signing bonus just 2 years ago. You're not going to move players that you paid that kind of money to that recently and that are going to have that kind of impact on your salary cap. So I can't see that one whatsoever. I know there's some hurt feelings, I think, there, but moving him would be pretty difficult. I'm just going to look it up right now. Yeah, $39 million dead. So I don't see that one happening at all.
How would a team go about in the Deshaun Watson situation? And as we see these, what I would call this quarterback empowerment is what people are calling it, and their ability to, force these changes, how are teams, what are going to be the way that teams try to combat that in their deals with quarterbacks? Is that something that's even going to be feasible? Is it going to be, smaller money but all guaranteed? I just don't know, because, the Texans now seem to be in an awful spot with Deshaun Watson. Granted, nobody's feeling sorry for them. Does seem to be very much their responsibility. But do you think this is going to ultimately have an effect on the way that quarterback contracts are structured?
No, I don't think so. Teams still have a lot of ability. While there's a lot of posturing that's going on right now, the teams do have a lot of financial kind of hold on Watson at this point. If he was to sit out, there's major fines that happen in the offseason. Even if he misses his OTA programs, he'll lose $500,000. If he sits out for the whole year, not only does he lose his salary, he's got to pay back $5.4 million of his signing bonus. And every year thereafter that he would sit out, he'd have to pay back $5.4 million. So there's a lot of, financial restraints that are on the players, even on their current deals, where the team, if they really want to, could be pretty strict with them, I guess, with it. So I think until you actually watch one situation play out to where the player actually does sit out, takes all these fines, sits out of training camp, goes through the entire season, week 10 rolls around and says, look, I'm not coming back. I'm going to miss the whole year. I'm going to lose my salary. Trade me next year. Until that happens, I don't think you're going to see any kind of change with the contracts.
Jason, do you think there'll be anything for teams to take away from Wentz and Goff, who got those big deals and neither of which are on the team that they signed the deals with? They both were able to be moved off of. The Rams obviously got a replacement in Stafford. The Eagles drafted their replacement and were able to move Wentz. Do you think there will be any hesitation for teams with young quarterbacks based on those two scenarios?
I think so. I think you might see more teams being a little bit more cautious with doing those real early extensions. Both of those players got extended after their third year. They still had 2 years of control over the players at that point in time. Both of them were, they looked promising, but neither of them really had those high-end years like a Patrick Mahomes or anything like that. So I think unless you hit that real high watermark, like a Mahomes-type player, I think teams might wait now until after they finish their fourth year in the league, or even after they finish their option year on the fifth, before jumping into those kind of contracts.
Jason, great stuff. Appreciate your time today.
All right, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you.
All right, that's Jason Fitzgerald, salary cap and contract expert at overthecap.com. He called in on the Fifth Third Money Line. A reminder, all guests who appear on Cleveland Browns Daily do so via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns Daily a Fifth Third better. Mel Kiper Jr. with his highest-rated quarterbacks ever. Did any Browns draft picks make his list of top 10? We get you that coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily on a Monday edition of the program. Mel Kiper Jr., the dean of the NFL draft and the man who birthed from his loins the NFL draft guru job. And it's a job that fills a lot of content through all these months with all these mock drafts. He did something really cool. So he did his top 10 graded quarterbacks ever. Now, he first started doing this in 1979, which is a remarkable thing. So he actually graded these guys, the top 10, based on his grades. And his credit, he went by his grades of them coming out of college, which is remarkable. So he had John Elway, number 1. He had Andrew Luck, number 2. And you say, okay, that holds up pretty well.
Sure.
Peyton Manning was number 3 on his list. Trevor Lawrence was number 4 on his list. You say, okay, well, that's heady company. Jim Kelly was 5 based on his analysis. You'll remember Jim Kelly did not play in the NFL. He refused to play in Buffalo and went and played, I believe, for the Houston Gamblers of the USFL.
Yep.
And did not play in the NFL because he did not want to play in Buffalo. So he said, look, I'm not playing in Buffalo. And then eventually did play in Buffalo and became a Hall of Famer there and lives there to this day. And to give you an idea of just how that Mel didn't rewrite history, here's number 6 was Andre Ware. Was his number 6 highest graded quarterback since 1979. Drew Bledsoe, number 7, which that held up pretty well. Again, more proof. Ryan Leaf was number 8 on his list. Troy Aikman was 9. Josh Allen of Wyoming was 10, so that is his top 10.
Wow.
Some other guys who he graded extremely high, Vinny Testaverde, Boomer Esiason, Steve Young, Bernie Kosar, and Tim Couch also making his others mentioned prominently. This is a fun list. What do you make of it?
It is a fun list, and just it goes to some of the exact science and some of the inexact science that goes into evaluating this position, and I think it also shows in certain cases how much situation matters. And I also, one other thing that I would point out here that is, to me, just a ridiculous transformation, at least it feels like it, is, growing up, there was big-time football and big-time quarterbacks play in the Pac-10, Pac-12, six-pack, as it was known.
Gosh, yeah.
So you look at his top 10 of all time. Elway, Stanford, 1 for the Pac-10. Andrew Luck, Stanford, 2 for the Pac-10. Then you get 1 for the SEC, 1 for the ACC. Miami's ACC, yes? Or are they Big East? What's the U for football?
They were independent at this time. Then they were Big East. Now they're ACC.
Okay. So, again, another one. Houston, Washington State, Drew Bledsoe. That's 3 of the top 7. Leaf, 4 of the top 8 are from the Pac-12, Pac-10.
Yep.
4 of the top 8. Aikman at 9. That's 5. 5 of your top 9 graded quarterbacks of all time came out of the Pac-10, yep. Pac-12. And now you still in the league. You'd say you got Aaron Rodgers in the league. You got Goff in the league out of Cal. But, I mean, where are Rosen, I guess, was UCLA, but he didn't make it. Darnold, USC. But that superstar just doesn't seem to be out there. And you'd say, well, Zegura, what are you talking about? Darnold was picked 2nd. Goff was picked 1st. Yeah, that's still pretty good. Sure. And maybe the West Coast still can produce some quarterbacks. But that is, to me, that was one thing I was like, 5 out of the top 9 all time from the Pac-10, Pac-12.
Well, it was a league that it was the first league to adjust to throwing the ball. Everybody else was still running triple option in those days. If you go back to 79, I mean, it was up until the mid-90s before teams outside of the Pac-12 consistently threw the ball. It was a running back. College football was a running back sport. The Pac-12 or the Pac-10 at that time, maybe even Pac-8 at that time of Elway, I'm not sure, that was a league that was the first to embrace, let's throw it all over the place. They threw it all over the place at Stanford. They threw it all over the place at Washington State. That was Washington State's calling card.
Yep.
Was we're going to spin it everywhere. They've always had it's part of their identity. Cal has always had quarterbacks who could throw it. UCLA, I mean, it all adds up with what they were doing something different then, and now everybody runs it. Now everybody runs the spread. Everybody throws it. And the high school football in the South and in Texas and Florida, it's so great. And now those kids don't have to go. Look at Drew Brees ended up at Purdue because he was a Texas guy. He's from Austin. He ended up at Purdue because nobody in Texas was going to throw the ball.
Yep.
So instead of going to Texas or Texas A&M or Texas Tech, Drew Brees went to play at Purdue because he knew that Joe Tiller would throw the ball. And that's what used to have to happen for quarterbacks to be able to play the way they wanted to play. They used to have to get out of the South and the Southeast, and now they don't.
No, and it's amazing. I mean, even now, last year Herbert was at Oregon, right? So that's another Pac-10 guy. I just think it's incredible that you have that list and you have the Pac-10. When you think of like the heyday of Pac-10 football, USC was the one that comes to mind, and there isn't a single quarterback from USC represented.
No. Well, you would have thought Leinart, when with the type of career that he had, you would have thought he would have been somebody, who would have been on this list. But USC was tailback U in this day and age.
Totally.
I mean, this is coming out of OJ, and it's Charles White, and it's Marcus Allen, and it's those guys. It was tailback U at that point, running student body right. So they didn't start throwing it really till Pete got there in the Carson Palmer was certainly would have, and that was in the early. Pete was there for the last 2 years of Carson Palmer.
The fact that Cam Newton is not on this list is, to me, the biggest shocking omission. That he had enough confidence in Josh Allen out of Wyoming and did not have enough confidence in Cam Newton to make him a top 10. He's not, and he doesn't even make it in the next on the list. He's not even in the top 15.
Yeah, I was trying to think. Who's the guy that you watched in this draft process? Obviously, you had to watch it close for the years when we were contemplating picking one. Who was a guy that you look back at and were like, that's the guy? And then conversely, is there a guy where you're like, boy, I was way off on that one, that you thought would absolutely hit?
That I thought, in terms of thought would hit but didn't, I don't know that there's one on that side. I didn't think Josh Allen would be as good as he is. Josh Allen is to me, the one that is the most surprising in terms of relative to what I thought, because I just thought your accuracy really doesn't improve, and he has improved it. He still makes some crazy throws, but he's dominant. In terms of somebody that I thought was going to be really good, I mean, I guess people could say that, well, Teddy Bridgewater didn't end up being good, but I think he certainly has been a winning quarterback whenever he's been in a good situation. Went undefeated with the Saints last year. He was a winning quarterback in Minnesota, took them to the playoffs, and, in fact, led them down the field we're talking heyday of the Legion of Boom as a rookie, led them down the field to field goal range for a chip shot to win it, and Blair Walsh missed it, and that kind of spiraled his career down. That's when they were playing outdoors, I want to say, at the University of Minnesota that game. It was frozen. It was freezing, and then he suffered the horrific injury. In terms of guys that I really, really like that didn't necessarily pan out, I mean, there are going to be people who say that Goff hasn't panned out, but he took a team to a Super Bowl.
Quarterback
look at his numbers.
Super Bowl.
He's been awesome. Like his touchdown interception ratio.
He's not John Elway, but
no,
he's still really, really good.
Right.
In terms of the guy that I really believed in coming out of college football was Deshaun Watson. Was the guy that I just knew it. Like he was the best player in 2 straight national championship games. You knew what was on him. You knew they weren't running pro concepts, and you knew he was the best player against Alabama twice in a row and the best player on the field. And so I just knew he would be a superstar. The misses, though, like I'll tell you one that I missed that I just shocking is Jameis. And I'm not, it's just been a weird path for him. But to me, he was really similar to Luck. Now, I knew he had the off-field stuff and that was real, but you thought that you could come through that. And I did not see him being quite as reckless with the ball. Now, he's still young. He could still be resuscitated. He's had a brutal situation in Tampa, brutal. Like in a better circumstances, he better off, no question. But I thought he would have been a kind of a no-brainer. I'm with you on Allen and Herbert. I thought both of those guys were overdrafted at the time of draft. I just didn't think you could teach accuracy. And Allen has defied – I've never seen anybody do what Allen's done, to go from somebody who was inaccurate to somebody who threw almost 70% completion percentage last year.
It's ridiculous to say in a year when Tom Brady just won the Super Bowl again. But for these young guys – coaches being willing to give them some of their college concepts, give them very clearly defined easy reads, but their athletic ability. It's the threat of their run and their ability to run, to extend drives, and to make plays. I don't think it's ever been more important that you can do something with your legs, which is ironic. We're reaching the end of, the Breeze is done, where their best quarterbacks in the league were totally, almost completely immobile, but Rodgers has always been able to move a little bit when he wanted to and needed to. Mahomes can move, certainly. Deshaun can move. Baker can move when he needs to. Kyler, all of these guys, Herbert, Allen, that has to be a part of your skill set now. I mean, that to me has been the biggest evolution of the quarterback position from the last 15 years. You take Now, Joe Montana was an athletic guy, but you think about talking to Bernie, for a guy like Bernie. And now Brady's doing it in this era, so you can't say it is not possible, right? He's doing it in this era. You can overcome that when you're just that good. But I think early in guys' careers, having that extra ability allows them to be more successful. Whereas because I think it's like anything, right? Being a pure pocket passer, that takes time. Look at Peyton Manning's adjustment into the league. Look at Brady's young career into the league. Look at even Drew Brees' young career in the league. To master that takes time and repetition and smarts and all of those things. Whereas you can come in and stress defenses because of being somewhat dual threat earlier in your career, even if you're not that great of a thrower.
Yes.
To me, the prime examples, look what Jalen Hurts did coming in for Philly.
Yes. We've seen that with Kyler, too, as obviously a higher end.
Sure.
Much higher ceiling than Jalen Hurts. But Kyler could come in and he stressed defenses from day one.
Totally.
It's like, we got to deal with this now, right? So now, can that evolve? Can that type of player evolve to the next step? That's what's remarkable about Allen. And Lamar is another great example of that. That's the thing that's crazy about Allen is you knew that he could stress the defense with his size and with his ability to run. But, dude, I had no idea that I just had never seen anybody become accurate. Like, that usually you are that or you're not. You don't go from being a 53% passer to a 70% passer. There's not that big of a gulf that's made up.
Right.
But there's consistency in his situation that I think speaks to, and I think about that when I think of Jameis Winston. Like, if Winston would have been allowed to be under the same offense all the way through, is it different for him? Or is there something that he's just missing in his makeup that allows for him not to have that success? Because coming out of Florida State, I thought, well, he's got everything you'd need.
And if he was 10% better, 20% better, does Tom Brady end up in Tampa?
But no.
Right?
No.
So
the answer, because he's 25, yeah.
And I'll get a chance. I think if he ends up staying in New Orleans, he'll get a chance with Sean Payton to be at least in a very positive and productive environment for himself. And then it'll be on him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to get his chance if that's the way that it works out. All right, coming up next, Nathan takes a look at his top free agent linebacker picks and what ones make the most sense for us when free agency begins on St. Paddy's Day. That is coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Winter weather certainly devastating on your home. It is time for you to call the pros at Perfect Power Wash. Dirt, mold, algae accumulate on the exterior of your home, and they lead to costly damage. PPW's safe process professional technicians help remove these contaminants, keep your house looking protected. You can call the pros today, 888-860-WASH. You can save 10% and take advantage of priority scheduling. The whole process couldn't be easier. I've used these guys. They're the best. One call does it all. The professionals at PPW will provide you a free quote. They will schedule your service. So if you want perfectly clean home for this spring, call the pros at 888-860-WASH or visit perfectpowerwash.com. And remember, on this one, the early bird gets the savings. So call 888-860-WASH today. Use the promo code BEAU, B-E-A-U, and you can save 10% on that one. 10% on that one. Instant savings. Let's go. Speaking of let's go, how about the linebacker position, Dr. Z? Well, what do you have for us on your big board?
We'll get there in just a second, but first, how about a big let's go right here? The Browns just sending out an email to all season ticket members, and here's the opening line. While our main focus will always be on the well-being of everyone within our stadium, players, coaches, and, of course, our incredible fans, we are encouraged by the current developments related to COVID-19 in our region and hope that we will be allowed to have a full capacity at First Energy Stadium this season. Let's go.
All right. Now we're talking.
Let's go.
Look, it's trending that way. It's trending that way, so that's great. That would be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal if you were able to get that done. So that's exciting news right there, Dr. Z.
Let's go.
And now, for your linebacker synopsis, give me some free agent linebackers you like, buddy.
All right, so we're talking about in our big board here, free agency big board. We did the receivers earlier. Now we're going to take a look at the linebackers. And I do believe that the Browns think the future of this position lies in Jacob Phillips, Sione Takitaki, Mac Wilson. But there are some young guys that potentially could be fit. So let's go through and take a look at what's out there in linebacker. And then, again, I'm going to give you the top three. I think it's probably unlikely it will be one of the first three names I give you, and then we'll get into some names that maybe could fit the bill, including one that really just, when I read it out loud, it just seems to fit what we're trying to do. But
you like it.
Let's start here. Levante David, obviously the best available linebacker in every respect, especially in coverage. Now, remember these numbers. He had an 84 Pro Football Focus coverage grade. He's 31. He will be expensive, and I just said I'm not sure he's the kind of luxury the Browns will want to pay for at this point in his career. At that position, the expense that comes, over the cap, they were predicting, I think, or PFF $13 million a year for him. I don't know. Rumored interest, but that's a name at the top of the list. I don't know if that happens. Now here are two 26-year-olds that are pretty interesting. Number one, Matt Milano. With the Bills didn't lose a regular season game when Matt Milano played this year. He has been the 11th best coverage linebacker in the NFL since 2018, but he misses a lot of tackles, and he's going to be expensive. He excels in man coverage against tight ends and running backs. He's a great sideline-to-sideline linebacker. Again, only 26. Tom Pelissero just wrote an article at NFL.com saying here are 10 names of guys who are probably going to make a heck of a lot more money than you're expecting in free agency. Matt Milano is one of those names. So in the immortal words of the owner of the Indians in Major League, cross him off the list then. So I just don't think we're going to be in a bidding war for Matt Milano. Here's another name that I think is very, very interesting. And here we go. Jayon Brown, Tennessee Titans, 26. Excellent coverage linebacker at a 74 PFF coverage grade. He's been the 10th best coverage linebacker in the NFL since 2018. Now, he excels in zone coverage. And we run a lot of zone coverage, especially with our linebackers. Fourth best force incompletion percentage in the NFL among linebackers. He gets his hands on the ball. But again, at 26, he's somebody that I would put as a candidate to maybe get paid a little bit more than you might expect because he's so good at coverage. So that's your top three. Of those three, I would say Jayon Brown would probably be the cheapest and maybe thus the best fit for the Browns. But I think it's unlikely to be one of those top three. So who are some names that you need to know beyond them? Here's one, and this one leaps off the page at me. Kevin Pierre-Louis. He's 29. He's been basically a special teams ace for his entire career. He's an excellent athlete and coverage linebacker. And it's been a trend whenever he gets to play, but he hasn't played much. But last year, remember what I said the grade was for Lavonte David? 84. Guess
84,
who else?
I took notes, yeah.
Guess who else had an 84 coverage grade last year? Kevin Pierre Lewis. And he's not an every-down player, will be relatively inexpensive. Now he's coming off of a career high in defensive snaps, played over 300 defensive snaps for the first time ever for the Washington football team, but excelled in coverage. Now you talk to me and say, okay, but this guy can help us on teams. This guy can be a sub-package linebacker where you bring him in coverage situations and you can get Lavonte David level coverage for probably a tenth of the price. That's something we might be interested in. So Kevin Pierre Lewis, that makes a lot of sense to me. Then you get to bring back B.J. Goodson or Malcolm Smith. Now, what I would like to do is combine. See, I think you combine Kevin Pierre Lewis with a Sione Takitaki or a B.J. Goodson, and you have a perfect three-down linebacker. Because Lewis will be your great coverage guy, Taki your great run stopper. But Goodson last year obviously led the Browns in linebackers and snaps, tackles. He was the second-best tackling linebacker in the NFL this year. Smith was very good in coverage, had the seventh-best coverage grade, but he's more of a veteran, 9-year vet. So you could bring those guys back. They know your system. But I still think adding a Kevin Pierre Lewis into the mix, even if you brought one of those guys back, gives you something there. A couple of sleepers for you. Again, names to know. Eric Wilson. He had the 27th best coverage grade in the NFL last year among all linebackers, which means that would be the best on one of the 32 teams. He played a career high in snaps for Minnesota. Now, there were injuries that thrust him into action at over 100 tackles, 3 interceptions, which was tied for most among all linebackers. Not great against the run, but again, solid in coverage. So Eric Wilson, a Viking, the staff would know him. There'd be familiarity there.
Interesting.
That's an interesting name. Also only 26 years old. And then there's Nicholas Mora, who's 25 years old, played for the Raiders. Injuries thrust him into action, had a 70 coverage grade, which puts him in the top 20 among linebackers last year. And so those guys, so to me, a Morrow, an Eric Wilson, but a Kevin Pierre Lewis, those could be cheap guys that are brought in to help buttress that room with what you're looking for, which is enhanced coverage ability.
As you look at this position, and we've seen us mocked at, with this position a lot in terms of, coverage linebackers, we are really young and have invested, not first rounders, no, but have invested in the draft at this position when you talk about Phillips and Wilson and Takitaki. And you're very young here if you want to be. And so with that in mind, do you think that it is a necessity to bring a veteran into this room, or are we to the point where Mac Wilson and Sione Takitaki and Jacob Phillips to a lesser degree are veterans?
Yes. Guys entering their third year, they are. Phillips, in my talks with Coach Tarver last week, said that, he was, in terms of his study and his mental acumen, his ability to understand and apply knowledge, was one of the best that he's ever been around. So I think that from a mental standpoint, you have some of that. You got good tutelage from Goodson and Smith, which is why maybe you bring one of them in. Kevin Pierre Lewis is 29, so he gives you a veteran. Wilson's 26. More, they both played 4 years in the league. So these are guys that could help fit that kind of a bill. And then a Brown or a Milano or a Lavonte, obviously, we're talking about full-time starters. So
those are bell cows.
There are a lot of ways to go about it. But Wilson last year played basically full season for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
And so he's going to have a lot of experience from a snap count standpoint. As I said, the 3 interceptions. So I think there are a lot of options. It wouldn't surprise me, though, to see nothing at the premium level here, but something in this bottom, because if you draft Zaven Collins, you're adding him into this room as well. So that's where like a Kevin Pierre Lewis makes sense, right? He helps you in coverage. You know that in a worst-case scenario, if you don't have a ton of snaps for him, he plays special teams and does that at a very high level. And then if you bring in a Zaven Collins or somebody like that, you've got, now your room's really taking shape.
Yeah, that's what brings it up, because as we're thinking about these 3 young guys, you mentioned some veteran guys who've been around, who've played some seasons. We constantly get mocked at this position in the draft. And you say, well, how young do you want to be? Like, how young do you want to be at a position? And it seems like most of the teams that are good have a good mix of a veteran and the youth. I mean, that's what you want. You want some veteran guys to show the way, and then you want some youth. And certainly Mac and Taki, going into their third years, are getting close to the point where they are the veteran presence in the room. You're getting closer to that point, certainly at this position. So there's a lot of ways Andrew Berry can go here in free agency and in the draft if he wants.
Right, and that, again, it's that flexibility. That's what he's able to do, and I think that's what's exciting about where he is right now, in terms of what he is able to do. And so you have various paths, but I think it makes sense at this position to give yourself some kind of a marker, or what I would call an option, just a placeholder here, and that if the draft falls the way you want, great, you add in more competition, but this is somebody who can also help you on special teams, somebody the coaches are familiar with in the case of a guy like Eric Wilson or a Goodson or a Malcolm Smith, and you just give yourself, there are many ways and many paths. And I think that's what's exciting about this on defense, is that you've got a lot of assets, both financially for free agency, also bargains as we're going through this big board. These, I'm talking about not shopping in the high-rent district here, but I'm talking about getting covetable skills at bargain prices. And I think that's exactly what these guys are all about doing. Finding skills that help us do our jobs better and help us get wins, but doing it without paying the premium. You get the same coverage grade right now. And I'm not saying he's the same player as Lavonte David, obviously.
No, of course not.
But you're getting a skill and an athletic set for a dime on the dollar. That is something you want to bring in. Now, are you going to count on him to play every down like you would Lavonte David? No, but you can ask him to do things in certain situations that you might ask a Lavonte David to do.
I wonder if this position, because of what Tampa Bay was able to do in the Super Bowl, this position got a huge bump based on that. There's
Overall,
no question.
Yes.
But
yes, in the league, and that's why
it's so specific to those two guys.
Right. You can't. Right. It's like
that's not mimicable.
Well, you could say, "Oh man, yeah, Jordan and Pippen what a duo. Let's just get a duo on our team." But your duo is not Jordan and Pippen, so it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't matter. You were great. We have two pretty good players, and you look at that'd be like Rolando Blackman and Brad Davis. They're a nice pair for the Mavericks for many years, but it's not Jordan. So it's not just having a good pair. The Browns, I think.
Davis. That's an amazing drop. Brad Davis. I encourage the kids to Google his 1989 Hoops card, and you'll see all you need to know.
Tremendous. Style icon. I think that we internally are happier with our linebackers than the external world is.
I would agree.
So I don't think this is a splash position, but here we've identified some guys that could be pretty good assets that are not going to fundamentally change our cap position.
Yep. All right. Good job out of you on that one. Coming up next, still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys ready? Yeah. All right, you got 2 minutes. You are up.
Oh, that's beautiful music from a Cleveland legend who passed over the weekend since we last did a show, and we saw the Browns acknowledge on Twitter, and certainly the loss felt for a long time the passing of Michael Stanley. The Browns wrote on Twitter on March 6th, saddened to learn of the passing of Michael Stanley, a true Cleveland legend who will forever be connected to the Browns franchise. Our love and thoughts are with the Stanley family, a man who lived his life on his terms, certainly, and a Cleveland icon to say the least. And Gibby, as a native Clevelander, this one certainly does hit home.
Yes, definitely. Saturday was it was a crazy day because of how much he meant to so many different people. Born in Rocky River, a huge Cleveland sports fan, a guy that was – and, Beau, you weren't from here, but in your days at 92.3, you'd run into him. One of the nicest people that you will ever meet. You know, I mean –
gentleman.
In music for over 50 years, over 30-year career at WNCX, who's one of our flagship stations. You know, our thoughts and prayers with everybody over Entercom that's dealing with it today. I mean, and his family. A huge loss for this city because he was an ambassador for this city. Sports, you name it, pop culture, music. He was an icon, and he will be missed.
Well said, sir.
Yes,
well said indeed.
words,
Yeah,
Gibby.
just the few times that I had to run into him, a dozen or so times, the nicest guy, just the nicest guy. So a true icon indeed. We're back tomorrow for more fun. The next level is coming up next. Thanks for